Hello and welcome to Developers Den by Newton School. I am 𝐏𝐚𝐲 𝐀𝐟𝐭𝐞𝐫 I'm a front-end developer, and in today's video on this channel, we are going to clone a very famous Indian startup's website UI, which is Dunzo. So Dunzo is a hyper-local delivery application. So why we are going to clone Dunzo's website today? Because I saw the website and it's really very clean, very minimalistic, and it has all the elements one should have in their website. So why one should clone and learn? Basically, whenever you go to a company, the designer will give you some designs and they'll ask you to code the website from by looking at the design. So you should know how to practically approach a particular design, how to break everything into components and then start coding. Also, I'll teach you how to format your code into proper folders, what should be the coding practices that you should follow, what should be the naming conventions that you will follow. So we'll learn all of this while creating a full project, and you can add this in your resume as well. So without further delay, let's look at the demo of the Dunzo that we have built and that I'll be teaching you in this entire video. So code along with me as well. Before starting, if you haven't liked the video, do like it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe it. And after watching the entire video, if you have any doubt, do comment it out. I'll help you for sure. So let's get started with the clone of Dunzo. So let's get started with a very quick demo of what we are going to build today. So as you can see, this is running on my local host 3000. You can see this is the desktop website of Dunzo's. This is just the landing page that we will be building today. So just to give you a sense that what the Dunzo's actual website looks like, I'll go to dunzo.com so that it can show me the landing page of Dunzo. You can see that this is the page for Dunzo and this is what we are going to build. You can see that this is pixel perfect and it is exactly how the actual website looks like. You can see we have the carousel section, we have the options here, we have the mini options there, we have topic section, and then we have this download app nudge. As you can see in this video here as well, we have the similar things. We are not just copying this particular part because this is just a list with the names of the places that Dunzo serves, and we can't copy the footer, so because of the copyright issues that they have. So here, as you can see, this is the part that we have cloned, and in the end we have made with Fire by Developers Den. So if you're excited, get your laptop and code along with me. You'll be able to build this landing page by the end of this video. Also, one thing to note here is that Dunzo's website is responsive but in a different manner. So what happens generally when you visit a website and you resize the screen, you see that they adapt automatically, but Dunzo's is a little different. What they generally do is that they maintain two different code bases for their website to say, and then they detect the screen width once you land on the screen, and then they show you the UI accordingly. It's not responsive to say. So as you can see here, that this is not changing as you are changing the size of the screen, but if you refresh here, you can see then it automatically changes the UI for you. So I'll just refresh this. It's taking the size of a laptop. If I go here for responsive, I'll say that this is a mobile, and now if I refresh, you can see the UI is changed. So this is how Dunzo works. Now if I remove the responsiveness from this button, you can see that they're asking me to rotate your device. So basically they just detect your device, and if this is Android or iOS or some mobile device, then they show you a different UI, or if it is a laptop or you can say a larger screen, then they show you a different UI. So we are just going to clone this particular landing page that you see on the screen. Why Dunzo? Because I find the UI very minimalistic and quite catchy. You can see that the work is done. There are quite good white spaces here, and it's also very colorful. So let's get started with the code part. Before starting, a big thanks to Newton School for making this video possible. If you are into coding and if you want to learn development, do check out their platform. They have great programs to make you learn coding and development, and they also promise you a placement. So the link for the same will be in the description below. Let's go. So let's get started by creating a React project for ourselves. What I'll do is I'll open up my terminal. I'll increase the size here so that you can see clearly. I'm going to use npx create react app. Create react app is a package we have which creates an automatic template for a React application. You can start from scratch, but it is advisable by all the developers basically. If you're using React, use create react app. It combines, it reduces your work and gives you a ready-made template to work with ReactJS. So we'll say create React app, but before this, let's go to our directory where we want to create this project. So I'll just go to my desktop, and on my desktop, I'll say npx create React app, and I'll just say it Dunzo clone. So what this will do, this will create a automatic template for me. This will give me some files. This will give me some public folder where I can code my entire project. So before, while this is being built, one thing that I would like to tell you is that I'll provide the entire code base to you in the description. It's available on GitHub. Go to GitHub, just clone the repository if you want any hint, any help between, so that you can understand the code base better. Just give it a star on GitHub. Also, while this is being done, if you haven't liked the video, do like it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. And also, if you have any doubt, do comment. I'll help you for sure. So meanwhile, this is being downloaded. Let's go and explore the Dunzo's website, that how we are going to exactly build this particular website. So to understand the website, let us see what kind of components that this website has. So React is all about components, right? So on the top, you can see we have a header. So this is the header part, which is kind of sticky to the top. So even if you scroll down, the header doesn't move. It's sticked, or you can say it's fixed at the top position. Then we have this strip, a strip just to give you a nudge that download the Dunzo mobile app. Next to the strip, we have the top fold. So this is the main section of the website, of the landing page, basically, where they are showing their USP. So this is the name of the place which it is detecting by your API, that we have the location API. We are going to hardcode this because we are focusing on the UI part. I'm going to teach you how to create UIs. So then there is a description that why Dunzo is better, why you should use Dunzo. Then we have something called the cards. These are just images. You can see these are just the images which you can drag and check it out. It's not a card component created by coding. So these are just images that they have placed on a div so that you can click on this. Next to this, we have some boxes again, where they are showing a logo, and next to the logo, some text here. So these are buttons which will take you to their respective pages. And next to it, we have top picks for you section. In this section, they are again showing some images. You can see these are just images, plain images, which are clickable actually. So, and one advice to Dunzo, that they should have made the cursor pointer here. I can see this is missing here. So next to this, we have a nudge for the app download. So this is again an image that they are showing in this banner. And then finally, we have the footer. So it's not going to be very difficult to clone this particular website. So if you want to understand how they're using Flexbox, so if you are into front-end development, I recommend you highly that you should know how Flexboxes work in front-end. So in CSS actually. So it's better that you understand how Flexbox works, how grid works, so that you can create very good responsive layouts. So if you want to understand better how Flexbox works, how particular website is using Flex, just go to this part in your code, in their code, by opening the inspect element and click on the Flex. You can see they'll automatically make some lines so that you can see how Flex is actually working here. So this is all about Dunzo's website that you need to know. What I'll do is I'll go here. You can see that the Dunzo clone repository is created. I'll just open this in my VS Code, and we can get started with the coding. We have our VS Code editor open. So I'm going to use Visual Studio Code by Microsoft, which is an open source code editor that you have. You can use any editor that you want, be it Sublime Text, be it Atom, or just the Node file if you want. But I recommend VS Code because it's quite light and it's very fast. Plus the extensions that you get is quite good. So the extensions that I'm going to use are these. You can take a look and you can use them yourself. My favorite is ES7 plus React Redux React Native snippets. So with this extension, I can just write 2-3 letters and I can get an entire template for my code. So I'll increase the size of my code base editor so that you can see whatever I'm typing. I'll close this file and I'll go to my files. So with Create React App, you get these files in your folder, you can say. So the main one is the index.js, which is your entry file to your React application. So you can see that this uses the React DOM.create root, which is a default thing in React. So, and here inside React.strict mode, they render whatever you have written inside your app file. So I generally don't hamper with this index file. I'll just do one thing. I'll edit my base style for the body here, and I'll go to my app.js file and I'll delete everything that's on my screen. I'll delete everything from on my screen and I'll use the snippet that we have. I'll say RAFCE. Now this command will give me a React application functional component and exporting it by default. So this is because of the snippet extension that I was using. You can use it yourself, or you can just type these 3-4 lines on yourself. If I'll save this and if I'll go to my localhost 3000, if I refresh this, the server is not running. We'll quickly run the server here by typing npm start. So this will start the server for us. And now as you can see, we have the app here. So perfect, our React application is running. We are not going to use the terminal anymore. So I'll close this. Inside my app.css, I don't have to write anything. So I'll just erase everything. I'll delete this. I just need to write one thing here, that for all of my components that I'm going to write, there should be no margin, because by default there is a little margin that you can see here. So I'll remove this margin. So I'll say margin as 0. I don't want any margin around any div, unexpected margin basically. So I would like to customize it myself. And next thing is box sizing. I want it to be of border box. So this is about CSS box model. You can read more about it, what this property does. So I'm going to use by default box sizing as border box. So inside my app.js, I'll just import my this styling file, which is by import this app.css. So perfect. This is how my website looks right now. There is nothing, to be very honest. So before starting, I'll say something, that if you're cloning any website, or if you're designing something by looking at some design, it's better that you use the exact font, exact size that they're using. So I'll check what kind of size they're using. As you can see, if you hover over any text inside the website, you can see that they are using 𝐏𝐚𝐲. So the name is here. If you will just see the tooltip that we have, and next to the color we have font, which is 36 pixel 𝐏𝐴Lroy, which is a sans serif by default. So what we need to do is, 𝐏𝐴Lroy is basically a paid font that you have, but you can download it from the internet. I know you are smart enough, so just download the 𝐏𝐴Lroy font. If you will just type as download 𝐏𝐴Lroy font, or you can purchase it as well. So whatever suits you. If you are just using for your own purposes, just download it from dafontfree.io. You can get the 𝐏𝐴Lroy font from here, or you can just download it from freefontsfamily.com. So from anywhere, just get the downloaded file, or it's better that I am uploading this entire 𝐏𝐴Lroy font on my GitHub repository, so you can get it from there. So I'll show you where I'll paste it. So what we have to do now is that I follow a very rigid code structure, so that it's scalable. It's so everyone can create a website, but good developers, they focus more on writing good code quality, maintaining their code structure. So what I will do is, I'll create a folder called common, which will contain all my common files. So inside my common folder, I will create one file called styles. So what my styles folder will do, this will contain all the styles that I'm going to use inside my website. So what kind of styles do we have? We have some font, we have some color variables. So many people just write, suppose I want to give a background color to my website. I don't want to write hashtag every time, just remember it every time. So what I'll do is, I'll create variables for those hashtags in CSS file, and then I'll use those. So all of those CSS will go inside this particular folder called styles. So inside styles, what I'll do is, I'll just create one folder called fonts, and inside this fonts family, I'll paste the 𝐏𝐴Lroy font that I have downloaded. So I have this 𝐏𝐴Lroy font downloaded already. I'll just copy it from here, and inside fonts family, I'll paste it. So if you'll see, I'll just do one thing. I'll open my Dunzo clone folder. Inside my source, inside my common, inside my styles, inside my fonts. As you can see, this is empty. I'll just paste this inside this. So now in my VS Code, you can see we have inside the fonts folder, we have 𝐏𝐴Lroy. So now I'll come back to the folder of styles, and here I'll create a file called fonts.css. Now in React, if you are importing a font from your local files, such as this, you should know how to do this. So you have to create something called font face. So in the CSS, you just have to write it as font face, and next to the font family, you have to write the name. So the font family is 𝐏𝐴Lroy, and next to the font family, you have to provide the source. So if you're giving a URL from website, you can just give it directly. But if you're giving it from your local repository, like how we are going to give it right now, you have to follow a different approach. Inside next to source, you have to write as local, and inside your local, give it a name, that whatever name you want. I'll call it 𝐏𝐴Lroy, and just provide a comma, and as the second parameter, provide the URL where your file is located. So our file is located at hyphen, we don't use the quotes here. I'll just say go to fonts. Inside the 𝐏𝐴Lroy, the default font that I want to use is the regular.ttf, and also next to this, I have to provide a format, which is format, I'll say true type. So these are there are various types of fonts that we have. As you can see, all of these fonts are TTF, so these are called true type fonts. So if I have written true type, I am missing a T here, so this is true type. Now if I'll save this, you can see this, I have imported my 𝐏𝐴Lroy regular, but here you can see we have black, bold, extra bold, light, medium, regular, semi bold, ultra thin. So what I will do is, I will just copy this and I'll paste it 1 2 3 few more times, so like this. And next to the source, now if you would have if you have used TSS earlier as well, you might be aware that we have something called font weight. So for every font that we are using, by default it is 400, but above and beyond that you can provide a font weight property. So I'll say that font weight for this one is, so if you are using 300 font weight in our CSS, I want which file to use this, that is Gilroy Light. So as you can see that if I'm providing, so as you can see now that if I want to use the font weight of 300, I can use Gilroy Light. Now similarly, if I want to use a font weight of 200, I can use a different font. So which one I can use is the ultra light instead of light. So I'll just remove this and so that I can see ultra light. And similarly, we have every font for, we have medium, we have regular, we have bold, we have black, and so on. So I'll copy this for other font size. Next to 200, 300, we have 400. 400 is the regular one that we have. For this one is for 500. So for 500, I want this to be, instead of ultra light, I want this to be medium. So let's say medium. Now for 600, I want this to be instead of ultra light, for 600 I want this to be semi bold. Similarly for 700, next we have, next to semi bold we have bold actually. So next to semi bold we can say that this is the a bold one. Now for 800 we have another font which is extra bold actually, so which is extra bold. So one thing that you should note here, that in this particular website I'm not going to use all the font size, but I'm just showing you how to import local fonts in your repository, so that you, in future, if you are creating a bigger project, or in future you are going to code more on this Dunzo clone, you can use these font families as well. And for the last one, which is 900 font weight that we have, you can just import black. So this is going to be extra bold. So this is the entire font family that we had. Now we can get started by importing this font into our body.css. But next to our fonts, I want two more files. One file that I'll be using is variables, of course. So variables.css. So now this file will contain all the color codes that I'm going to use. I won't be using hash code everywhere. I'll be just importing the variable name and my color will be auto applied. So this is the best method to use if you want to implement dark mode in your website, or if you want to keep your style consistent. So one color by default that I'll be declaring is white. This is the general nomenclature for writing color variables in CSS, by two hyphen and the color name, whatever color name you want, and then just write the hash code for that. So by writing hashtag FFF, I have declared white variable to have this hash value. And next to white, I'll just declare the other colors whenever I'll need it. And next to the variables file, I'll need one more file, which is our common classes file. Common classes file. So what happens that whenever you are creating a website, now many of the CSS styles that you're going to use are very repetitive. So it's better that you create a common class for that, so that you can just write that common class name and the style is automatically imported. You don't have to write the CSS every time. So one common class that we are going to use in our website a lot is the flex property. So I'll just say dot flex. So now inside our HTML, JSX basically, whenever I'll write class name is equal to flex, this property will be auto applied. So next to our flex property, I'll create one more thing, that sometimes we want our flex to have a column direction. So for this, I'll say flex direction as column. So now what will happen, that in a div, if I write these two class names together, flex and column, these two properties will be auto applied. So this will reduce our burden a lot. And finally, one more flex property that we'll need a lot in this code base, or in any code base general, is absolute center. So you must have heard of this joke as well, that programmers suffer a lot when they have to center a div, they have to center something. So just by writing this display as flex and these two lines, which is justify content as center and the other one is align items as center, you can center anything inside a div. So these two class names will help us a lot in our code base. So next to this, now if you look at Dunzo's website, you can see that there is some white space after this and some white space before this. So if you'll inspect the code base of Dunzo, you can see that they are fixing the width of the components that they are creating. So this is the width. So you can see they are using a maximum width of 1024 pixel. And since we are going to apply this class name to all of the files in our code, in our design, so it's better that we create a class here by calling it a max width class. So what will happen, that whenever I'll give this class name to any div, this will have a maximum width of 1024 pixel, maximum width of 1024 pixel. And if I'll give it a maximum width of 1024 pixel, what will happen? It will stick to the beginning of our code base. So and so what I want to do is I want to give it a margin of auto. So what margin auto will do, it will automatically center the entire div by giving it a auto margin on both of the sides. So my component will be auto centered. So, and the finally one class name that I'll be using a lot again is 𝐏𝐴, which is cursor as pointer. So you can see on Dunzo's website that all of these images are clickable. If I'll close this, all of these images are clickable. So my cursor is pointer here. So by just applying this 𝐏𝐴 class to any of my div, that will be clickable. So that's it for the common classes, fonts and variables. We'll be adding more variables as we'll code along. So what I have to do right now is I'll go to index.css file, and inside my index.css file, I will first of all import all of those CSS files. So here, so in CSS, you can import your files like this, import, and next to your import, just open the quotes, you go to the file wherever you have the file, which is common, and inside my styles, I have common classes.css, and make sure that you are giving a semicolon at the end, otherwise this will give error. So I'll just copy this 2 more times, and next to my common classes, I have another file which is variables.css, and next to my variables.css, I have fonts.css. So I'll remove this. I'll say fonts.css. Now whatever style I have written in these 3 files, these are automatically imported in my index.css. Now in my body, I'll remove, in my code's body, I'll remove this font family, and here I'll write as Gilroy, and next to this I'll write as sans serif. So what is this property basically? Now suppose for some reason my Gilroy font did not load, or some laptop or some machine which is very old is not supporting the Gilroy font. So what will it do? It will fall back to the default font of sans serif. So these two fonts, sans serif and serif, are basically default fonts that all the browsers, all the machines, all the laptop, all the devices already have. So it's better to have a fallback font as well. So this is the thing that we want in our code base. And next to this, if I'll just save this and I'll go to my React application here, you can see that the font is changed now. It's quite different. This is Gilroy font that we had. So this is for the body.css. Now inside my application, let's start building. So I'll close this common folder. So React is all about components, right? So one folder that I'll be using in my code base is components. So inside my source folder, I'll create one folder called components. So this folder will contain all the components that we are going to use for our application. And also, since we are just creating the landing page right now, this particular landing page, but in future you might create larger code bases, or you might expand this particular Dunzo project after this. So it's better that you have one pages folder. Now what pages folder will do? Pages folder will contain all the pages, landing pages, or you can say contact pages, about page for your application. So inside my page, we have just one route right now, which is home.js. So inside my home.js, I'll say RAFCE, which will create a function component for me. I'll export it, and inside my app.js, I'll import this particular file here. So I'll say app and just do this. Make sure that you are importing it from the right place, home. Okay, so instead of app, I'll say home. Done. So now if you will go here, and if you'll refresh it, we made some mistake actually when we imported app actually. So I'll have to rerun my server. I'll close it by command C, and I'll run it again by npm start, and I'll say localhost 3000. Okay, there was some issue actually. So what we did, we imported our application file inside our application file, so it went into an infinite loop. So I can just wait for it to build, and it became unresponsive. So this is a very critical mistake that you should never make. If you have seen, I just did an infinite loop here. I imported my app file inside my app file, so it would have again imported the app file. So exit page. I'll just close this thing, and I'll open it again, localhost 3000. Okay, perfect. Now it's working. So you can see my home component is imported. So this was for my app.js file. What we can do next is, okay, so we can go to our components folder, so pages folder, And in my home pages, if you look at the Dunzo page, what kind of components do we need right now is that first of all we need a header, then we need a main fold. So this particular part, from this particular strip to this point where there is a different background color, I am calling this main fold. You can call this anything that you want. Next to this main fold we need a top picks component, and next to a top picks component we have a this download app nudge, and finally we have the footer. So what we will do is we will create some components folder here. So the first folder that we will need is the header. So I'll say header, and inside the header I'll create an index.js file. So the index.js file will be an entry point to each of the component that I'm going to create. RAFCE header. So while we are at header, I'll create a style file as well. So header.css, and I'll import this particular style file inside my header file. So import and then header.css. Now this will import the CSS file inside my header. Similarly, next to our header we also need a footer. So footer in the end actually. So we will have two files which will be index.js, RAFCE. Now you can see how fast I'm coding just because I'm using some extensions inside the VS Code. So you can install these extensions if you haven't and use these on your own. So footer. Similarly, I'll create a style file for my footer, footer.css, and I'll import this footer inside this. So I'll say import, and then inside quotes I'll say footer.css. So my footer styles are also imported. I'll close this. Next to this I want obviously the main fold. So I'll create another folder called main fold. So main fold, and in the main fold I'll again create an index file, index.js. I'll say this as RAFCE main fold. So just because I'm teaching you right now, I'm creating all the components at once, but once you start coding on your own, you will create these folders as you code along, as you get the requirement for these components. So next to this I'll say main fold.css. So I'll import this main fold CSS file as well. Import main fold.css. So perfect. Finally, now we just need two more things. One thing is top picks. So I'll say top hyphen picks. So inside the top picks, I'll have an index file, which will be RAFCE, a functional component again. So one thing about React functional components or components in general, if you are not aware, that their name should be in capital case. Otherwise, your React application will give error. And next to this, I'll need a CSS file. So which will be toppicks.css. I'll import this CSS file inside my index file. Import React import top.picks.css, picks.css. So okay, we have all the major components. Just one component is missing, and that is our app download. So I'll say app download, and inside the app download I'll have an index file for sure, which will be RAFCE, a functional component, app download, and of course one style file here. So app download.css. Now that all our raw files, or you can say the skeletons, are created, we can start building our application. So app download.css. Perfect. Now inside my home, what I'll do, I'll just do one thing. I'll simply import all the components in the order that I want. So I want it in an order like this. I'll need the header, so I'll import it as well. So header, then next to my header, if you'll see next to the header, we have this main fold section, this particular section with a different background. We are calling this as main fold section. So I'll say main fold. Then next to our main fold, if you will go to Dunzo's website, you will see we have the top pick section. So we will import the top picks, and next to our top picks we have the app download section. So I'll import the app download section, app download, and finally we have our footer. So this is the footer. Perfect. Now inside my home page, we have all the components that we need in proper order. So this is it. Now one thing that you should do always is that the wrapping div, just give it a class name so that in future if you want to style it, you can style it. So I'll say home page and I'll save this. So this is it. I'll close this particular file. I'll close all the files actually. So now what we have is that we have a page with all the components that we need in order, Now we can start coding. If you'll go to React application that we are coding, you can see we have header, we have main fold, we have topics, we have app download, we have footer. Now we can just start creating each component one by one, and our website will start looking like the actual Dunzo's website. But before starting, we'll do one thing very quickly. We'll change this particular logo and the title. So I'll go to the public folder inside the index.html. Here you will see that the title is React app. What we'll do is we'll say developers den. So if you are writing this project in your resume, make sure you're changing the title according to your own. So developers den, and I'll say Dunzo. If I'll save this, you'll see that the changes are reflecting. Next, we need the fav icon. This particular icon that you see here on the address in the tab section is known as fav icon. So you can find this particular icon here. If you go to the head section of the index file by inspecting element, you can see the fav icon here only. So it's this particular icon. So I'll copy this in this address and I'll paste it inside my own file. So href is equal to this. If I'll save this, you can see we have changed the fav icon and the title. Now I'll keep it here, and let's get started with the header section of our application. So inside our header section, let's go to the index file that we have. So according to me, that will close this particular folder section. We don't need it. We'll close the terminal as well. So I'll increase the size a little bit. So according to me, header section is the most complicated section in this particular Dunzo's website, because you can see there is a div which contains everything, and then inside the div we have a div with a maximum width of 1024 pixel here, and inside this we have a left part till this point and a right part till this point. So this is going to be a little complex. So let's get started with the first div. So the first div that we have, we'll give it a class name of header wrapper. So we'll call it header container. Now inside our header container, we have a max width header, right? So I'll create a div and I'll call it as header so that you can see whatever we are coding right now. If I'll refresh it, you can see this is the header that we have. Now I want this to be at the center and have a maximum width of 1024 pixel. So if you'll remember, we created a common class called max width. Now you can see that the header is automatically at the center. Now the header word is not exactly at the center because this entire div, if you'll see, this entire div is taking 1024 pixel of width. If you'll see the blue section on my hovering, you can see that this is this particular div has a width of 1024 pixel and it is at the center of the particular screen. So our max width section is working. So let's give it a class name of header as well so that we can style it later. Header max width, and I want this to have a property of flex. Why flex? Because the component inside the header, the left part and the right part, I want this to be displayed as flex. So we have flex. Now inside this we need two divs. One div will be the left part of my header and the another div will be the right part of the header. We'll say left part and the another div is the right part. So I'll say div and this is the right part. Ignore the spelling mistake because obviously we are going to replace this with the components. So I'll give this a class name of header left and I'll give this a class name of header right. So I'll say header right. So perfect. Now if you'll see, we have left part and the right part together. So one more thing, that each of this component I want this to be flex. So I'll say flex and flex. I love flex property for CSS because it gives you the entire freedom to customize your layout however way you want. So this is the left part that we had. Now inside the left part, if you'll notice, we have few things. First of all, we have an image here. So I'll just copy the image address from here and we'll create a image file here. So not file, image tag. And for the source, I'll paste the source that I just copied from Dunzo. If I'll paste it and I'll go to my own website, you can see this is the Dunzo's logo that we have. Now this is giving me a warning because every time you're creating a website, you should make sure that your website is accessible by every browser. So we should give an alt. Now what is alt? Suppose your image is failing for some reason, your image is not being downloaded. So then the website can show this particular text to the user. So I'll say alternatively call this as Dunzo logo. Now let's give it a class name so that we can style it later as well. So header logo, and next to our logo, I'll give it a height of 28 and a width of 122. Now you must be thinking how I got this height and width value. So simple, it's I just checked the Dunzo's website and I got to know about this height and width for the Dunzo logo. Now what we'll do very quickly, we'll go and give the styles to these classes: header left, header logo, header, and header container, so that our website starts coming up. So I'll go here, not here, in my folder section. I'll close the public file because we don't need this anymore. Inside the header file, I'll close this. So if you'll remember, the very first file that we the class that we had was header container. So inside our header container, I'll say that I want the background color to be of white. So I'll say var white. If you'll remember that inside our styles folder, in the common folder, if you'll go to our variables, we just declared white to be as hashtag FFF. So this is the style folder that we have. So again, now if you notice that this particular header is always sticky, or we can say this is already fixed. So what we can do is inside my header CSS, I'll also give this container a class name of position as sticky, so that it is always sticky at the top. So now we also have to give it a position. So I want it to be from the top, just be at 0, which means there should be no gap between the top line of the screen and just be there at the top. And the next thing that I want is to give it a Z index of 99. So if you'll see here that anything we are scrolling on Dunzo's website is going under the header. So header is at the top of everything. So therefore I'm giving it a Z index of 99. So Z index, think it of like a stack that we have. The higher the Z index of that particular component will be, or the div will be, it will come on top of the lower Z index element. By default, every element in your HTML file have a Z index of 0. So next to this, if you will see, while we are scrolling, there is a subtle hint of a shadow here. So we can just copy the CSS file of this shadow from here, or you can create your own shadow value. So what we'll do, we'll go to our variables file, and inside our variables file, we will create this shadow component. We will create this shadow variable. So I'll just call it as header shadow. So I could have pasted the value there as well, but it's better that you paste the values inside a variable and then use it, so that suppose tomorrow you want to change your UI, you just have to change the values at one place and it will be reflected in your entire code base. So inside the header, I'll say box shadow as where header shadow. So this will be like this, header shadow. Perfect. Now if I'll see in my own website, you can see there is a subtle shadow here, plus my logo is there, everything is working quite fine. So perfect. Now next to our header container, we had the main header file, header div. So in the header div, I wanted to have some padding. If you look at the Dunzo's website, there is some padding from top and bottom. So I'll give it a padding of, let us say, 14 pixel and 0 pixel. So perfect. As you can see, it has a padding of 14 pixel and 0 pixel. Now if I'll refresh it, you can see there is some gap from top and bottom. So what kind of notation is this inside the padding? This means that give a padding of 14 pixel from top and bottom. From left and right, just keep it 0, because we don't need any padding from left and right. Now if you'll remember that in my code, there along with header, I already have a property called flex. So I can give the other properties of flex to this particular component. So I want to justify the content to be a space between, which means that stick to the extreme ends of my div. So now if you'll see, my right part is the extreme right end of my header and the left part is at the extreme left of my header. So with this property, I did that particular thing. Now vertically, I want it to be center. So with this property align items, my entire component will be vertically centered. Now next to align items, I will say that font size, I want it to be of default by 14 pixel, and font weight, I want it to be a little darker, because Dunzo is keeping it a darker. So whenever you are copying a style, suppose tomorrow you are working at some startup or some company, the designer will give you some style. You can't just code on your own. You'll have to see what kind of font the designer is using, what kind of font weight the designer is using, and you have to write exactly same. So for this, the font weight is 600. Now if I'll refresh this and I'll save this, you can see this right part is having the exact same font and weight as this Dunzo for partner and business with Dunzo screen text. So this is for the header part. Next to this header, also if you notice on our Dunzo screen, the text color is a little different. So if you'll see here, the text color is hashtag 171E30. So we have to get this text color as well. So what I will do is I'll go to my variables file and I'll copy this particular text color actually 0F1938, because in the header they are using a different color 171E30. I can copy any of the color, they both looks kind of same to me. So I'll say here on my in my variables file, I'll say text, just the text. So text, instead of text light, what I can do is I can say header header text, and next to our header text I'll say hashtag 0F0F1938. So this is the hex value that I copied from Dunzo's website. Now inside my Dunzo I am going to use this particular header text color. So in my header.css file, what I will do is inside my header.css file, I'll just say that the color of all the text that we have, keep it as where header text. Now if I'll save this, the text is a slightly different shade of black, it's not exactly black. So perfect. Now what I want to do is I'll just show you something, that we are going to use another property of flex. So if you'll say if you remember, we had two things, header left and header right. So I'll write both the classes. This is header left and this is header right. Now just to show you something, I'll give it a background color of red, and I'll give this a background color of blue, background color of, let's say, aqua. Now if you'll see, this particular component is expanding only till where there is something, content is something inside the flex. So since there is only this much of content, the background color is till this point only. Since there is this much of content, the background color is till this point only. So what I will do right now is I'll use a ratio property for flex. I'll say flex till 4, and now if this is taking 4 part, which means other one is by default taking the content width, but the other, if you're giving this flex property to one div inside the flex, this will take the entire width available. Now I'll show you some magic, basically, if you don't know flex. So if I'll give a flex of 5 to this header right, you can see now these two are distributed in a ratio of 4:5. So inside my header, if I'll go to the folder, and if you'll see, inside my header I had a header left and a header right, just two components. And if I gave this a property of flex as 4 and flex as 5, this will automatically adjust in a ratio of 4:5. You can experiment more with giving it a flex of 2:5, 1:5, 1:4, and so on, and you will see all of this working. So I don't need this background color, this was just for demonstration, so I'll remove this and I'll save this. So now if you'll see here, my right part is starting from here and my left part is till this point only. So this is it, we have written the CSS for this till this point. Let's start coding next. So next to our image, we can see that we have a location here, we have a set location component. So this is a flex in itself. So what we will do is we will create another div here. So we will create another div here, and in this div I will say we need few things. So first of all, we will need a SVG icon, which is for the location. So I will say okay, so first of all I'll give this some class names. So I'll say keep it as flex, and next to the flex I'll give it as a header location class name so that I can style it. Since this is a location component, I'm just giving it a location class along with my header. And next to this I want everything to be center, so I want absolute center. If you'll remember, we wrote this absolute center class inside my common classes, which just means that keep everything at the center of the div. And also, since this is clickable, I want it to have a cursor of pointer. So this is it. If I just write something here, let's say A, and save this in my code, you can see this A is clickable and it is center at the vertically at the center, horizontally at the center. So inside this class, inside this div, I need one thing, I need an SVG, basically this location icon, this particular location icon. So for this I'll create a div, and inside this div I'll paste the icon. So I'm going to use a website which I use a lot, which is Tabular Icons. You can go to Tabular Icons, you can see these are the open source SVG icons which we are free to use. So what I'll do is I want it to have a size of 20 pixel actually, and I want the stroke width to be of 1.5 only. Just the color that I want is a little bit different. If you'll see, this is of green shade. So color that I want is you can copy it from Dunzo's website. The color that I want is 00B00B37A. So this is the shuttle shade of green. Now if I'll search here, I can say map pin. So this particular component, this particular icon I'll just paste the entire SVG. So on that tabular website, if you'll just click on any of the icon, you'll copy this SVG if you'll paste it. And now if I'll go to my own website, you can see we have the location icon here. How easy was it, right? So along with this, I'll give it some class name here as well. So I just want to be vertically and horizontally center. So I'll say this as flex and absolute center. Perfect. Now you can see this is at the center of my div. Next to this SVG, if you'll see, we have few more things. We have just one text, which is, I can say div, and I'll say set location, and we can give it a class name so that I can style it better next time. I'll say it as location text. If you'll save this, you can see set location is here. And finally we have another icon, which is chevron down basically. So these icons, that the carrots at this down icon that you see here, these are known as chevron. So, or I don't know how to pronounce it, I guess it's chevron only. So again, I'll go to my tabular and I'll copy this and I'll reduce the size a little bit as 18. I don't think I can style it from here, so I'll just edit the SVG code that we'll get. So I want chevron down. So where is down? This is chevron down. I copied this inside my div. I'll paste it, and here, if you'll say this, you can see the width and height is 16. I'll change it to 18 so that the width and height is 18 only. And color B3A. Okay, perfect. The color is working. And here I'll give it some class name. Again, I want it to be center, so I'll say flex and absolute center. Perfect. Now if you'll see, and our code base, you can see we have a chevron down, we have set location, pin icon as well. So this was for our left part. So very quickly what I'll do is I'll go and style this particular location component in my header.css file. I will start writing the code first of all for the header.location. So next to our header left, I'll say for my header location, just give it a flex of 1 because I want it to have the entire width available, and there should be a little gap between this Dunzo logo and the location. So I'll say margin left. So this margin left value is hit and trial method basically. You can experiment with different values and you can see what is looking better. So this is coming here right now, and next to 42 pixel I want it to be at justify content at flex start. So basically this was at the center of this particular flex. I want it to be at the starting of this flex from here. So in between this logo and this div there is a gap of 42 pixel and it's starting from here. Now inside my header location we have various contents. So the first one is location text. So for my location text I want a margin. So from, sorry, not max resolution, I want a margin basically. So I want a margin from top and bottom I want 0 pixel margin, but from left and right I want 6 pixel margin. Perfect. So now you can see set location is working exactly like how we wanted it to. So now we can go to our index file and we can start working on the right part of our header. So in the right part, it's very simple. We just have a few buttons, which is Dunzo for partners, Dunzo for with business with Dunzo. We have a icon search, we have an icon called cart, and then finally we have a sign in button. So let's get started with this. Inside our header right part, I'll remove this, and okay, so inside my header right we have first of all a Dunzo for partner text, right? So for this I'll say div and I'll say Dunzo for partners. So P is capital, partners. If I'll save this, you can see Dunzo for partners is here. I'll give it some class names. I'll say class name as 𝐏𝐚𝐲 because the cursor should change if I'll hover over this. Perfect, this is working. Also, if you'll see, if I am hovering over this, not this, I'll close this. If I'm hovering over this, the color is changing. So for this, I'll create a common class again. So I'll give it the class name of hover change, so that whenever I'll hover over any of this component where I have provided this class, the property will be applied. So perfect, our Dunzo for partner is created. Next to this, we have business with Dunzo. So I'll say div, I'll say business with Dunzo. Perfect. You can see here business with Dunzo is here. There should be some gap which we'll provide with CSS, but next to this we also need a chevron down icon. So what I will do is I'll copy this particular icon here from here, chevron down, this SVG, and next to business with Dunzo I'll just paste it directly. So if I'll paste it here and save it, and I'll just change the hex code to black, which is 6 times 0. Now if you'll see, we have a black chevron icon called Dunzo for business with Dunzo. Also, I'll have to give it some class names. You can see this is not vertically centered. All of this is not vertically centered. So what I have to do is I have to center it. So I'll from in this div, I'll give it a class name, not on click. I'll give it a class name. So the class names that I want to give here is flex, obviously flex, and then absolute center. Now if I'll see, you can see this is vertically and horizontally centered. Now again with this I want it to change the color on hover, so I'll say hover change, and finally we want cursor to be pointer, so we will say curpo. Now you must be seeing the benefit of using a common class every time in your code base. Now if you'll see, if I'm hovering over this, my cursor is changing to pointer. If I'll write this particular class hover change, the effects will also be seen for color changing. So now that this is done, now we have to write the icon for uh, write the code for this search icon and for the cart icon. So I'll get out of this svg file, and next to this particular div I'll create another div which is my search, right? So for my search I want a div first of all which will say search. Now you can see in my code base here we have the search. So for search I'll again copy an icon from here. I'll say search. So we have this particular search bar. Where is the search bar? This search bar. For this search I don't want it to be of this green color. I want it to be default black color. So this is it. I'll copy the search bar from here. Size I want a little bigger, so I'll say 24 size will be best, and stroke width 1.5 is fine. I'll copy this and I will paste it above this search. And for this div, now I will give some class names. Flex obviously, so that I can center it. Now if you'll see, if I'll flex it, this will be next to each other, but I want it to be on top of each other. So I want it to have a flex direction of column. Now if you will remember, we wrote a common class for this which was column, and next to this I want it to be center, so I'll say absolute center obviously, and then next to absolute center I want to change the color, so I say hover change, so that whenever I'll hover over this the color will be changed, and finally we'll say curpo. If I'll save it, you can see my search icon is here. I can change the font size later on. Finally, next to our search icon, we have another icon called the cart icon. So for cart icon, I will just copy this thing entirely, and I'll paste it. And here, instead of search, I'll say what I'll say cart. If I refresh this, you can see two icons similar, but for this I have a different icon from here. I can either copy this from my tabular, or but the tabular icon is very different from this card that the Dunzo is using. So I'll just go to the inspect element, I'll go to the HTML file, and I'll copy this element. So I'll copy this element, and inside this SVG I'll replace this particular SVG with their SVG. If I'll save it, and here you can see I replaced the entire SVG part. Now on my own website, you can see their cart icon is copied. Thanks to Dunzo, and sorry if you found this to be a copyright infringement, but this is just for educational purposes. So this is the cart. Now I'll have to give it some class name so that I can style it better. So this was like this, and here what I want to do is for this search text that we have here, I can just call it as class name as I'll call it header icon text, icon text, so that I can style it. And I'll copy this class name for cart as well. I'll copy this and I'll paste it inside the cart here. Now if I'll save it, and my buttons are done, finally I just have to do one thing. Next to this particular div, we just need one more div, and I can call this as sign in. So sign in, and I'll give it a class name of header button, and since this sign in button is also going to be a button, clickable button, so I'll call this as curpo, cursor pointer. Now if you'll see, my cursor pointer is working. Now we just have to do one thing. We just have to style all of this, the class names that we have given, we have to use these. So I'll go to my header.css file, I'll close this, And next to my header.write class name, I'll start writing other class names. So the first one is obviously my header icon text. For my header icon text, I want the font size to be of 12 pixel. I just copied this from Dunzo's own website, or you can just try with different font sizes that we have. And from margin top, there should be some gap between this text and the search icon that we have. So from margin top, I wanted to have this 6 pixel. Now if I'll save this, you can see there is some gap between the icon and the text that we have. So next to our header icon text, I want the header button to be styled. So I will say header button. Also, I am missing some absolute center class somewhere. I'm feeling like this because because for this cursor pointer header right. Okay, we'll see. But first of all, let's style it for header button. So I'll say header button. For header button, I will say padding of 8 pixel and 20 pixel, not padding of 8 pixel, which means from top and bottom I wanted to have a padding of 8 pixel, and from left and right I wanted to have a padding of sorry, 20 pixel. And now background color, I want it to be of a green color, the green color that this Dunzo have. So you can just copy the green color like this. It is 00D290. So I'll go to my variable file and uh, I'll say button green. So my button green is button green. My button green color is basically hashtag 00 D290. If I'll save this, you can see this is a slightly lighter shade of green. Here I'll say background color of variable button green. And if I'll save this and if I'll go to my own localhost, you can see the green color is applied. Next to my green color, next to this, I want it to have a property of color. The text color should be of white. So I'll say color variable white. Next to this, I also want it to be a little curved. So I'll say border radius of 30 pixel. Now if you'll see look at the button that we have, the absolute center is not working here. So let me just see if I'm typing it correctly inside my header file. Where was I? Button center, header button, and so there should also be a absolute center. So now if I'll save this, my absolute center is not working actually. So what I can do is, if I'll go to my common classes, and here I can see absolute center. Okay, all of the classes are working, but here in my header file it is not being applied. So not an issue, I'll remove it from here. I'll look at the CSS file first of all. Why is it happening like this? Sign in. There is a padding of 8 and 20 pixel. There is a border radius of this, and there is some gap from the top and bottom. So not an issue. Okay, if I'll close this, perfect. So inside my header.css, the next style that I like to give is inside my header.css. Next to the header button that we have, border radius of 30 pixel. Finally, for the hover that we have, I want for hover change. If you'll remember, we provided this class, right? So for this, I said that if I'm hovering over any component, any div basically, which has this hover change class on it, just change the color to be of button green. So variable button green. Now save it. If I'm hovering over it, you can see that the color is changing. Just one thing, that my flex property is not working. I am missing my flex somewhere here. So what I can do is button column cursor pointer. I'll have to see where I'm missing my flex property. So this is header icon text, header icon. So here also I'll say cursor, flex and absolute center. Now if I'll refresh it, you can see that the sign in text it at the center. Similarly, I must be missing my center class somewhere on top. So I can say that inside this, for this particular SVG, we have flex, we have column, we have absolute center. Perfect. Next to this, we have flex, column, absolute center. So flex, column, absolute center, hover cursor pointer, and also table icon search, tabular icon cart is there. Now next to this also we have flex, absolute center, and this flex, absolute center, hover change, cursor pointer, flex, cursor pointer, hover change. Okay, Dunzo for partners, this is also there. Then next to this we want for the location one, we have flex and absolute center, location text is also there. And above this, we have flex and absolute center, flex, location, absolute center. And above this, we have the right part. So this is the header right actually. Where is my header right? So this is left, and here for the this particular part, I missed the right part actually. If I'll minimize this here, if I'll minimize my header left, for the right we just have header left and right. So I'll have to see what I'm missing at this point. So this is the kind of thing that you'll have to do if you are coding for your own website. You might encounter these problems and you'll have to write the properties by yourself. Absolute center, yep, this is working now. And if I'll do this, now I just have to provide some space in between. So for header right, what I can do is, where is my header right, along with the flex property that I have here, I can give it some more properties such as sorry, justify content, space between, which means that spread all the things that you have evenly. And finally one more property, which is to vertically align everything, align as center. Perfect. Now as you can see, we have a fixed header, and which exactly looks like Dunzo's header. If I close this, you can see there is no difference right now in these things. So perfect. What I can do right now is I can start, just the icons are different because I don't have access to their icon. Otherwise we could have used that as well. So now let's start with the main fold component, and then topics, finally this app nudge, and the footer finally. So let's get started with the main fold in the next video. Till then, if you have any doubt, do comment it out. If you haven't liked the video, do like it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe it. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for staying connected with Developers Den.